This lesson is called ER and IR verb conjugation. I love to hear when you conjugate. Conjugation is good. I wrote that myself. The learning objectives for this lesson are that you will be able to define the word conjugate, identify the different categories of verbs in Spanish, state the present tense verb endings for each different type of verb in Spanish, and conjugate ER and IR verbs in sentences. So this is a quick review of what we've already learned. Conjugate is an English word, and it means to change a verb to match the subject, or to say who is doing the verb. And we learned this when we learned how to conjugate AR verbs. We took a verb like hablar, which means to talk, and this is the infinitive form of the verb. It's an unconjugated verb. Yo hablo, I talk. We changed the verb to say who's doing it, and that is to conjugate. I love to hear when you conjugate. Conjugation is good. So there are three kinds of verbs in Spanish, and I promised you that every verb you meet in Spanish will fall into one of these three categories: AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs. We already learned how to conjugate AR verbs. They were verbs like hablar, cantar, bailar, ayudar, lavar. As promised, they all end in AR. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to conjugate ER verbs and IR verbs. Every ER verb will end with ER, like beber, comer, leer, vender, creer. And every IR verb will end with IR. Escribir, vivir, abrir, salir, dormir. All of them will look the same with those two last letters being IR. So remember this, when we conjugated an AR verb, we dropped the AR ending, and you're left with the stem, and then you add the new endings depending on who's doing it. So we're changing the verb to say who's doing it, conjugating it. So yo hablo, I talk, tú hablas, you talk, él habla, he talks, ella habla, she talks, usted habla, you formal talk, nosotros hablamos, we talk, vosotros habláis, you all in Spain talk, ellos hablan, they talk, ellas hablan, they talk when you're talking about girls only, and ustedes hablan, you all talk in Latin America. So what you've noticed, and I think we pointed out in the other video, was that the el, ella, and usted form of the verb are always the same. The same thing happens on the other side. Ellos, ellas, and ustedes form of the verb is always the same, because those endings are the same. So now let's move on to learn how to conjugate ER verbs. You take an ER verb, like comer, you drop the ER ending, so you're left with the stem, or the root of the verb. In this case, it's com, because we've taken off the ER. And then you add the new endings, depending on who's doing it. So for yo, you add an O. Yo como, I eat. For tú, you add an ES. Es. Tú comes. You eat. For el, ella, and usted, you add an E to the end of the verb. Come. Él come, he eats. Ella come, she eats. Usted come, you formal eat. For nosotros, you add hemos. Nosotros comemos, we eat. For vosotros, you add eis. Vosotros coméis, you all eat when you're in Spain. For ellas, ellos, and ustedes, you add en. Ellos comen, they eat. Ellas comen, they eat, when you're talking about just girls. Ustedes comen, you all eat. If you haven't noticed, the ER verb endings are exactly like the AR verb endings, except instead of A's, you use E's. O es E, hemos, eis, en. Here's how to conjugate IR verbs. You take an IR verb, like vivir, you drop the IR ending, and you're left with the stem, or the root of the verb, and then you add the new endings. For yo, you add o. Yo vivo. I live. Now, in all verbs, AR, ER, and IR, when you're conjugating for yo, or when you're saying I do the verb, you always drop the ending and add an O. That's very simple. For tú, you add es. Tú vives. You live. For él, ella, and usted, you add an E, or E. Él vive. He lives. Ella vive. She lives. Usted vive. You formal live. For nosotros, you drop the IR and you add imos. Nosotros vivimos. We live. For vosotros, you drop the IR and you add is. Notice there's an accent over the I. Is. Vosotros vivís. You all live when you're in Spain. For ellos, ellas, and ustedes, you drop the IR ending and you add N. Ellos viven. They live. Ellas viven. They, if you're talking about girls only, live. Ustedes viven. You all in Spain live. Or you all not in Spain. Anywhere else, sorry. Notice now that the IR verb endings are exactly like the ER verb endings. The only two that are different are the nosotros and vosotros forms, where instead of you having amos and eis, you have imos and is. So there's really three different sets of endings. You have AR verb endings, o, as, a, amos, ais, an. ER verb endings, o, es, e, amos, eis, en. And IR verb endings, o, es, e, imos, is, and en. So let me hear it. Take a moment, conjugate these verbs. You can pause the video, and then we'll go back over them and see how you did. Abrir for tú. Abres. Comer for ella. Come. Asistir for yo. Asisto. Beber for nosotros. Bebemos. Vivir for ustedes. Viven. Vender for él. Vende. Aprender for vosotros. Aprendéis. And escribir for usted. Escribe. Time to check yourself. Can you define and explain what conjugate means? Can you identify the three different categories of verbs in Spanish? Do you know the verb endings for each different category of verbs? And you will have to memorize those. Can you conjugate ER and IR verbs in sentences? Can you finish this sentence? I love to hear when you conjugate. Oops, I gave you the answer.